Jumbo, everybody. In today's video, I have another gigantic pile of laundry to put away. So I figured it'd be a good time to chat with you guys again. So in today's video, we're going to talk about some work at home tips that I have for you guys. I've actually been working at home for almost 6 years now, which is crazy to think about. And so I've come up with a couple of tips and tricks that have helped me over this transition from, working in an office to working at home and like all the different things that go into it. Things that we don't necessarily think of as being helpful, but they really are. And I know a lot of you guys are kind of in the situation too, where you are either spending more time at home because you can't go into the office, or your office has asked you to do your working from home. So these are some things that I hope will be helpful for you. So the first tip that I have for you guys is to try to establish a daily and a weekly routine. You may have seen or figured out that the days kind of start to run together a little bit and we forget what day of the week it actually is. And so having a daily routine and a weekly routine can be really helpful in that regard. So from a daily routine standpoint, something like, having a set time where you wake up in the morning and then you have your breakfast, you get dressed for the day, and like just having this systematic routine, you're at your desk by whatever time you need to be at the desk. One thing that I always do is I always end up getting dressed to normal people clothes, and as the Fly Lady says, dressed to lace up shoes. I don't know if you guys are Fly Lady followers or not, but I obviously don't wear shoes in the house. I don't have house shoes that I haven't gone outside in, but I do have slippers, and so I do put my slippers on, and that's kind of like my it's go time kind of I don't know, like thought process. It's very mental, but it really does help me because it's like, okay, now is time for work. Because when you're at home, there is a very fine line between work and home life when you're at home. So a lot of times we'll see that there's dishes in the sink that we need to put away, or there's a mountain of laundry that we have to put away. And so it's almost like we have to establish those home boundaries versus the work boundaries so that we have that division. We know that from these hours it's work time, these hours it's home time, and even though you're in the same place, you have your own designated spaces. So speaking of spaces, having a designated workspace is also very, very helpful. When I first started working from home, I did a lot of my work on the couch or at the kitchen table. And it wasn't an ideal situation for my family life because it kind of blurred those lines again between, is this work time? Is this personal time? Like, what is this during the day? If I am working in a really public area of the house, it can be kind of hard to concentrate on things like work tasks that I'm doing, or if I'm on a phone call, or if I'm on a Zoom call or whatever, or trying to record a video. It can be a little tricky when you're in a super public part of the house. So trying to find it, even if it has to be a corner of a room or a closet or just some sort of designated space, it's going to help you get that. It's kind of like you're commuting to work. Even though you commute to a certain room of the house, it still has that feeling of, okay, I'm transitioning from home time to work time. So it really doesn't matter how large of a space you have, or really if you even have a desk or anything fancy. You really don't, as long as you have a designated working space. That's the most important thing. My next tip for you is to try your best not to multitask. And I know a lot of times this is really kind of hard, especially if you have children at home and all of their different things that they are doing too while you're trying to work. It's very tricky with, home distractions. It's also tricky with social media distractions too. So what I like to do is I actually like to put on a YouTube music playlist that helps me focus on what it is that I have going on. The sun is coming out. Do you see the brightness in the room? It's amazing. So here's the thing. So I have a couple of YouTube playlists that really help me focus on my work and not be distracted by the other things. So I have one that's like Disney music. I have one that's just kind of like pop music. And then I have another one that's 1980s music. I love the 80s. It's like my time. I wasn't even very old in the 80s. I was actually very young. But I really enjoy listening to 80s music. And so having those kind of music playlists up and running on YouTube can be really helpful. Another thing that I like to put on YouTube sometimes is nature sounds, nature scenes. So either an ocean or a forest scene with a bunch of birds or something, just something that is that you don't pay a whole lot of attention to. Like it's just kind of there running in the background, but you're not sitting in silence. Now, obviously, if you have business phone calls and things, you want to make sure that that's not distracting from what you have to do, but it can be really helpful for helping you focus on your tasks that you need to focus on. And the other thing too is I like to close all the different tabs that I have open in my website browser, or even take my phone and turn it face down. I always have my phone on silent. I never, ever, ever have the sound on my phone ever. And even if I'm like on my phone all the time, I always have it off. So I like to put my phone face down, and that is something that really helps me to be able to focus without distractions. So what I like to do with my phone, I do like to use the timer function. I also like to use the alarm function. And those are the only two sounds that I actually will hear if I have my sound off on my phone. So I like to set a timer for, say, 10 minutes from now and say, okay, in 10 minutes, I have to shift my focus into another work tasks or whatever. I felt like when I was in an office setting, I didn't need to use a timer as much as I need to use when I am working from home. And it could just be because my job tasks are much different now than when I worked in an office. When I worked in an office, I worked for somebody else. Right now, I work for myself, working from home. So I am my own boss. I do not really have coworkers or anything like that. Nobody is telling me things that I have to do. I tell them to myself. And so I don't know if any of you guys are in that situation from working at home right now, but if you are, I've found that the timer setting is really, really helpful. And it goes back to that fly lady thing. She always says you can do anything for 15 minutes. And it's true. And that kind of thing really does help me at least stay on track. And that's one other thing too, is if I am working from home and I happen to throw laundry in the morning or something, I set a timer on my phone to know that it's time to take a break. Let's stand up and switch the laundry so you don't leave it in there for like 3 days. Because I've done that before. So taking breaks, I talked about that a little bit, making sure that you stand up, you stretch, you get some water, walk around your house, do whatever you need to do, whatever you would normally do in an office. You would do that at home also. So going along with taking a break, sometimes it can be helpful to set a designated stopping time. Now, if you're working again for somebody else, you're probably going to be on that 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 schedule, right? Just like you would be in your office. However, if you work for yourself, and I'm using myself as an example, I have a hard time stopping work at the end of the day. When I work for myself, and I've heard, lots of people say this, when you work for yourself, you can work any 80 hours during the week that you want to work. Which doesn't have to be the case, y'all. Does not have to be the case. And it really shouldn't be the case because that's not healthy. So there are some technologies that can be really helpful when working from home also. I know a lot of people are starting to embrace Zoom at this point. Skype is also really helpful. There is a software, I don't know if it's a software or website or whatever you would consider it, but it's called Slack, where you can do messaging with coworkers and things like that. So that can be really helpful also. We have really taken Zoom to heart. When I teach my music lessons from home, I actually use either Facebook Messenger video or I use FaceTime on my phone, and that tends to be pretty good. Zoom is also very, very helpful. I taught a college class the other day on Zoom, which was super fun to see all those students there. So that is a very, very helpful bit for conference calls and things like that. You can also get yourself some noise canceling headphones or noise canceling earbuds. A lot of times the earbuds have a built-in microphone with them too, so you can have them in a conference call or whatever with people that you need to talk to. I have found those to be really helpful if I'm trying to block out any distractions that I'm, wanting to work past. So that can be something helpful to have on hand too. And right now, with so many people telecommuting, I think is the old-fashioned term for it, but really, I mean, that's what it is. There's so many new technologies that are coming about like every 5 seconds, it feels like. So this is the time for that, that's for sure. There are actually a lot of companies right now that are hiring online work from home types of like customer service agents. I saw one in particular, Amazon is hiring something like thousands or hundreds of thousands of online work at home customer service folks. A lot of companies right now are required or requiring their employees to work from home, especially in the customer service area, if they can do that. So, if you're out of work and you're wanting to work from home, this would be a really good time to look and see what types of customer service jobs are available for you as a work at home professional. And one last little piece of advice that I have for you guys for working from home is to try to keep your workspace clear and neat and tidy. This is something that helps me at the end of the day. I do like to clean off my workspace as much as I can, have a to-do list ready to go for the next day so that when I sit down at my desk, my space is clear, my head is kind of in the space of where I can just start working on my tasks. I don't feel like I have to clean up my mess from the day before. So that kind of is like symbolic to me almost, where I am closing up shop for the current work day, getting my list ready to go for the following day so I can sit down and just jump in and go. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. If you are newly working at home, let me know your tips in the comments section below. We can all learn from each other. If you haven't already,